Hello, and welcome to Zen Maintenance with me, Christine Burke. If you're brand new, this is a podcast about self-care and self-discovery for every age and every stage of life. And in this podcast, we use the wisdom teachings of yoga and related well-being practices to discover more about who you are and how to live your healthiest, most liberated, happiest life, one breath, one day at a time. So I'm thrilled that you're here. Thank you for showing up for yourself. Thank you for showing up on behalf of the world, because the work that we do here, the play that we do here, is really essential. It really matters. We're bringing more light, more clarity, more reflection into the world. So here you are. What are we on to today? Worry. Worry is where we are. So if you're worried, you're in the right place. If you don't want to worry, you're in the right place. So here we are. And the question of the day is around worry. Are you worried that you worry too much? Don't worry, be happy. Well, easier said than done. And maybe downright annoying to hear if you're facing something worry-worthy. But today, let's see where you land on the worry meter and what's possible for you. Maybe we can move the needle a little bit in a better direction. Are you a chronic worrier? Maybe even a worry-wart? Or are you an occasional worrier? Or maybe you're one of the unicorns who never worries. Well, today we dive into the trouble with worries and also even the benefits. We'll see where you land and how comfortable or uncomfortable you are with your worry style. And the question of the day is this worthy of worry? And is there something I could do instead? Okay, but first, meditation. So here we go. We're just going to take a few moments, and whatever worries might be in your mind, in your heart, even in your body, we're going to push them to the edges. We're going to soften the energy. We're going to pull inward and root down and just take a few moments to let it all go. Now, if you're driving a car or you're out doing something or in your home doing something, and you have managed to make the time to listen to this podcast, you're exactly where you need to be. You do not have to make this perfect. You do not have to sit on a yoga mat and take a particular position, though that is a lovely, wonderful, and suggested thing to do if you can. But really, just take in the meditation from wherever you are. If you're driving, you keep your eyes open and you keep your hands on the steering wheel, of course. If you're on a bike, you're paying attention to your surroundings. But according to where you are, just dial in and dial down a little bit internally. Let this be whatever it needs to be for you right now. Okay? We're not about perfection. We're about progress and excellence. And whatever you can do in this moment is excellent. So if you are closing your eyes, if you're in that situation where you're sitting in a chair or you're on a yoga mat or your feet are up, you're going to nestle in a little more and close your eyes. If you are in one of the other situations or something else that I was just describing, just let go. Maybe it's your stomach, maybe it's your chest, maybe you feel like there's a fist somewhere holding on. Maybe your actual fists. Open your hands if you can. And everybody, take a deep breath in together and let it go. We are here for the Zen. We are here for the peace. There are not that many places right now where you might feel that you can find peace. I hope there are. I hope you've created a life that has many pockets and many places where you can go and settle and find peace. But in our very, very chaotic, fast-moving, world of intensity, we don't find it as often outside of ourselves as maybe we'd like. Maybe in nature, hopefully in your home. But even if you can't find it outside of yourself as often as you'd like, the good news is you can find it within. We have to travel a little bit past the fluctuating mind, past the gripping of the body, maybe even past a fast beating heart or a churning stomach. But if we allow ourselves, if we open to it, we can find it. And when you find it, you can remember that it's just because you wanted to. It's just because you imagined you could. It's just because you believed it was there. The peace. And it is. It is there. One path that we can take past the fluctuations of our humanity and our humanness is the breath. Steady, rhythmic, always there. The breath. If you find that turning your attention to your breath isn't what works for you, you might turn your attention to sounds. The sound of my voice, the music in the background. Maybe you have birds or someone's cooking in another room. Maybe you hear the rustlings of a pet or leaves or the hum of your refrigerator. All of these things that are in real time. If you're on the go, you're taking in what you see. Just staying observant and open and relaxed. And in this way, we start to travel past the mental busyness, the contrasting feelings, emotions, and events that we encounter each day. And we find something else. We find that there is space. Just like between the waves and the ocean, there's space. It takes a moment for the next one to build, break, and dissolve. That's the same thing we find in our fluctuating thoughts and emotions, and even pain in our body. Things coming into alignment and going out again. There's a lot of flow and a lot of fluctuation. And if we just keep riding that with our awareness, riding that wave, we might start to drop below what's choppy, what's anxious, what's future-oriented or fearful. And we land in a pocket of peace. We land in a quiet space. We land in the eternal present moment. Over and over again. And we just take it in. Not reacting, not plotting or planning, not preparing speeches, not advocating for anything or against anything. Just being. As you increase your ability to be, you increase your capacity to experience peace, to hold it. All right, let's take a long, deep breath in and let it go again. If you had your eyes closed, you can gently begin to open them. So, if there was something that might have been worrying you, it might be harder to recall. That's one of the truly, I think, almost magical effects of mindful meditative moments. The things that felt so heavy or complicated can be quite diluted or become just a little less important, a little fuzzier. And what becomes clear, what in its place gains more clarity, is your consciousness, your awareness, your beingness. And you can use that to solve problems, or you can use it to just experience living a little bit more in the now. So, back to our worry. Is this worthy of worry? Is there something I could do instead? But first of all, what is worry? Well, the Oxford Languages definition is a state of anxiety or uncertainty over actual or potential problems. So, right off the bat, we have something important: actual or potential. We may worry over something that is only a slight possibility, or we may worry over something that is a real possibility. And the difference between those two may very well determine the level of joy and relaxation that you might experience in your life or the lack of it. So today I'm going to throw out a few Sanskrit yoga philosophy terms at you, but I know you're up to it and they won't be on the test. Did just the mention of a test worry you? Well, if you're not school age, it could still take you right back, can't it? And haha, I'm kidding, of course. This podcast is a test-free zone. But the yoga words are great ones because they really help define whole concepts. Like certain languages are just better at describing moods or feelings, like je ne sais pas, français, like say French. So in classical yoga philosophy, Patanjali, who wrote the Yoga Sutras, which is something we can dive into deeper another time, but suffice it to say, is a sort of yoga Bible of all of the ancient yoga philosophy that we use to this day to move up in an organized fashion toward ultimately enlightenment. And he views worry as a fluctuation of the mind. So, this is to say, as we were experiencing in the meditation, that there is this movement, this constant energy at its best and chaos at its worst going on inside of the mind. And it's like we're trying to catch the best thoughts that we can, but there's like this windstorm and there's so much moving around and it's so busy and it's changeable that sometimes we're just catching, kind of erratically. And we get all of the things that worry us and none of the things that make us feel grounded or safe or calm. And at that point, you might become something like a worrywart, right? We've heard that sort of a derogatory expression for someone who is in constant worry. But before we go into the negative, what might be some benefits to worrying? Because there can be. One would be motivation for action. Worry can act as a signal that a situation is serious and requires attention, and it might prompt people to prepare, to plan, to engage in preventative behaviors. For example, worrying about an upcoming exam may motivate you to study, right? Or worrying about your health could lead you to going to the doctor regularly. It might lead you to think, I should get that mammogram, and maybe making healthier lifestyle choices. It can also be what's called an emotional mental seatbelt. So This is engaging in a degree of bracing for the worst. Like I'm going to imagine the worst case scenario, and I'm going to go through all of the possibilities of that so I can create an emotional buffer that can lessen the shock or disappointment if a negative outcome actually occurs. So that's sort of a twist on exposure therapy. If I'm trying to get a particular job and I'm applying for this job and I want it more than anything in the world, if I walk through all of the steps and all of the possibilities that could happen if I didn't get the job and I see that I will be okay, it might lessen that heightened emotion around it that brings up fear, which could even ultimately sabotage your chances in the way that you're performing in an interview or even in a written application. So there is some positive to that. And it can make a positive outcome feel more pleasurable by contrast, right? You kind of dull down the heightened emotion around how much you want that. And then when you get it, because you've already gone through all the negative possible outcomes, you're even happier. So there's that. There's also enhanced preparedness and problem solving, where we can channel focus and stimulate the brain to run through the what if scenarios, leading to creative solutions and better problem solving abilities. And this could be really useful around planning or preparing for earthquakes or fires, things like that. Anxious individuals often anticipate mistakes sooner, and they're more likely to have a plan B. And a plan B isn't bad. Now, I'm a big believer in go for plan A 100%, like dream big, like our last podcast was all about. A plan B can help an anxious individual feel like they have a net to catch them, a soft landing pad. So, increased vigilance and safety. This is an evolutionary perspective that suggests that worry helped our ancestors survive by keeping them alert to potential dangers, sort of like our guinea pig, Mr. Cow. So he featured in a much earlier podcast, but I'd like to bring him up again today because he is always here with me. He is part of the podcast process, and his condominium is right over here. One thing about him that I find fascinating that relates to this podcast is that though he is wired, much like our ancestors, to stay alert, right, to survive by being vigilant, whenever we are doing this podcast, he is at his most relaxed. He's lying down, his legs are out, he's calm. So I'm just saying that even the guinea pig is benefiting from Zen Maintenance Podcast. Yay. But going back to our ancestors, there was a lot to stay vigilant about. They were constantly on the move, and everything was trying to get them, is probably what I imagine it felt like. Now, today, this vigilance can translate into increased cautiousness, which can help avoid accidents or recognize important warning signs in one's life that need attention. But we can also get carried away. Right? We can feel like we can never just let go. We can never just relax. And that is going to cause short-term and long-term problems. Also, empathy and connection. Personal struggles with worry and anxiety can make people more empathetic and sensitive to the challenges faced by others. You might bond over things that we worry about and share and help each other find ways to be bolstered, lifted up, or maybe even diminish worries. So there is that aspect of social bonding and connection. Now, the key thing that we must pay attention to, the key distinction is between constructive and unconstructive worry. So, constructive worry is typically short term, right? It's rational. It makes sense for the situation and it leads to action that resolves the issue. But unconstructive worry is persistent, excessive, irrational. It doesn't lead to effective action. It can be paralyzing and it can interfere with daily life and sleep and relationships. And this chronic form of worry, it's often associated with the anxiety disorders. So this is the important point. Constructive, unconstructive, constant, or worthy, as our opening question was. If something is worthy of your worry, it's in that constructive, it's in the rational area. If it's everything all the time, we have to make sure that we're getting the help that we need, or at least helping ourselves in the moment as best that we can. So back to Patanjali. Remember him? He's like the father of yoga. He defines yoga as the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. Yoga is the cessation, the stopping, the pausing of the fluctuations of the mind. Worry is one of those fluctuations, a very popular one, a repetitive mental pattern that's rooted in something called avidya. So remember I said I was going to throw out some yoga words. These are Sanskrit, yogic, philosophical terms that describe particular things that we're talking about right now. And this one, avidya, is ignorance or misperception. This means we're misunderstanding what is truly permanent and what is not. So simplifying, what is worth worrying about and what isn't. And that we're also over-identifying with our thoughts. This is something called asmita, or ego identification. And it means that every thought that I have is equally important. Every thought that I have deserves my full attention. When we over-identify with those thoughts, then we can't discern what's worth our worry or not. And next, we have attachment and aversion. In Sanskrit, this is raga and dvesha. This is clinging to what we want and resisting what we don't want. So if we're over clinging to what we want, we're going to over worry that we're going to lose it. And if we're resisting hard what we don't want, we're going to worry that it's going to sustain, it's going to maintain, it's going to persist, and we're going to have to live with that somehow. And lastly, we have fear of loss on a bigger scale, death, abhinivesa. So this is deep survival-based fear. Am I going to live or am I going to die today or in the near future? So from a yogic perspective, worry happens when we attach to a specific outcome and we try to control what is probably most likely unstable, and we forget our deeper, steady nature beneath the thoughts. The antidotes in yoga include steady practice called abhyasa. Remember, no test. I'm just giving you these beautiful words to deepen your experience, to really feel the history and the power of yoga. But you don't have to remember them, but you could remember steady practice, training the mind gently and consistently. Vairagya, non-attachment. This is releasing the grip on outcomes, not always having to see that everything is going to go one particular way, the way that you see it, but opening to other possibilities that the universe might have in mind. Breath work and meditation help us, right? We know that. They create space between awareness and thought. So one way I like to describe that is it's like the spaces between notes in the music. One of the things that makes music music is not just the notes, but the spaces in between. And breath work and meditation help us notice those spaces between. And then one that I really love, trust in Dharma, the unfolding of life as it is. Trust the unfolding. I mean, something is beating your heart. Something is telling your lungs to take the breath in. You may have a name for that. You may have a religion for that. You may have a feeling around that. Is it God? Is it universe? Is it nature? Is it something mystical that we don't even have to name? But your heart is beating and your lungs are breathing and your life is here. So if you can trust that you'll wake up into that, you can also trust the unfolding of life as it is. Now, I'm not saying that this is always easy, and I'm not saying that this is always easy for me, but I do practice, and it does work. Yoga doesn't say don't care. It says act fully, but don't cling, right? Live big, but with an open hand. Now, we're going to add in a little something else here. What the Stoics say about worry. Stoic philosophy, especially thinkers like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, they take a very direct stance on worry. Their core teaching is that we suffer more in imagination than reality. That's what Seneca says. Think about that. We suffer more in imagination than in reality, more often, longer. I think that feels true. The Stoics divide life into two categories: what is within our control, our thoughts, choices, and actions; what is not within our control, other people, outcomes, weather, reputation, death. This is to say that if we know the difference, our whole lives are different, right? What is within our control, our thoughts, choices, and actions. What is not within our control includes other people, outcomes, reputation, weather, death. Worry to the Stoics is misplacing energy on what is not ours to control. Epictetus taught some things are up to us, some things are not. When we worry about things outside of our control, we disturb our inner peace unnecessarily. And the Stoics' antidotes to worry: focus on your next right action. I love this one. I use this all the time. When I start to get worked up, when I get twisted around, when the worry is rising and the heart is racing, I pause and I say, what is my next right action? It's for you to determine what is right for you. Another, we covered this a little bit earlier, but practice negative visualization, imagining loss to reduce the fear of it. We're all going to lose things. We're all going to lose people. Probably all of us here together today have. So we don't like to imagine it again. But maybe if you have lost something important to you or someone dear, maybe knowing that you lived through that, like I have, maybe knowing that you can carry on, maybe that can help to reduce the fear of it. Now, it's also possible that it increases it, because once you know that something's possible or you know how bad it can feel, it can heighten it. But if you come back again to where you are now, I've done it, it will at least remind you that you can do it. And should you need to do that again, you will do it. And so another Stoic perspective on this: accept impermanence. Align your behavior with virtue rather than outcome. Be virtuous in your actions. Do what's important to you to do, and then just let the outcome come, because that's all you can do. Stoicism does not say don't plan. It says prepare wisely and then release anxiety about the result. So, as you can imagine, as you've heard, yoga and Stoicism overlap. Both traditions teach that worry is a mental habit, not necessarily reality itself. It is a mental habit. Worry is not a thing that lives in our reality. It's a habit we get into. Now, if it's a small habit and you're using it in the positive, then it's working for you, right? It's getting you to the doctor and to the dentist. It's making sure that you have that earthquake kit and that you know your exits. But if we're thinking that it's a thing in our reality and that we must manage it all the time, then we're misunderstanding and we're living in unnecessary stress and strain. Attachment to outcomes fuels suffering. Attachment to outcomes fuels suffering. When we can only see one outcome, only one thing that feels positive to us, or only one thing that we are going to accept, we are destined to suffer, because it doesn't always go that way. And sometimes it actually goes better than we could have imagined. So there's that. And also, control is limited. Inner steadiness is cultivated, not given. We have to practice being steady. That's not something that we're necessarily born with. Those certain personality types might seem calmer and steadier than others. It is generally, as we move on in the world and more things occur, something that we're either cultivating or not. Peace comes from aligning with what is real, not what we imagine. So yoga frames it spiritually. Remember your true nature. Trust in the unfolding. Trust in your dharma. Trust that there is something here with us working, guiding, supporting, nudging, sending us messages, signs, however you like to connect with that. Trust in a power that supports and nurtures you. I mean, why not imagine that there is a benign aspect to the universe, kind aspect to the universe? I know there is a lot of pain and strife, a lot of ugliness, but there is also tremendous beauty. And think of all the times when something you can't even explain just came in and swooped you up and protected you, took care of you. Seems like a coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. Stoicism frames it rationally. Remember what you can control. But both yoga and Stoicism are essentially saying worry is the mind trying to control the uncontrollable. Now, I could tell you loads of stories about me worrying and things not happening and things happening that I worried about, but ultimately it's up to us and how we handle something when it does happen. And we really can't fully know what we will do until the time comes. But we do have choices along the way. So, one little story I'll tell you is about my first yoga retreat many, many years ago. This was, I guess now, gosh, like 24 years ago. And I was taking a pretty large, felt large to me, group of people to Mexico, to a place called Correas, which truly turned out to be heaven on earth. But I felt very responsible. People had paid, a fair amount of money. They were putting their trust and faith in me. I think most of the people that I had with me, if not all, this was their first yoga retreat. So I had that on my shoulders as well to give them something that they could feel was worthy and as wonderful as they'd imagined it and would give them a good taste in their mouth, right? Carrying forward. So, all of that circulating through, I was excited planning it. It was a beautiful place. I'd never been there because I couldn't really fly to Mexico, check it out, fly home, and go back. So, I was going to be landing there pretty brand new as well. And well, what else? What else was interesting about that? I had my mother-in-law coming, and she was in her late 70s, I think, at the time, maybe around 80. And then we had some younger people. So there was this very wide range. And how was I going to teach to everybody's abilities? So all of this is to say that I may have actually worried myself sick. Because one of the things that occurred to me at one point was, what if I got sick? What if I got sick? And we landed there and I have to teach and I'm in charge of almost everything except cooking, thank goodness. So guess what happened? I know you're already saying it. Yes, I got sick. On the plane, on the plane, I started to feel a terrible sore throat, a horrible fever. I was chattering, my teeth were chattering. I was shaking. I don't know. Maybe I did worry myself sick, or maybe someone coughed on me, but I came down like gangbusters right away with this horrible flu. And maybe the worst part of it was it stole my voice. By the time I had landed, I could barely speak. And so I couldn't hardly come out of my room for the first 2 days. I didn't want to get anybody else sick. And here I am with all of these guests waiting for their yoga. And there was nobody else there that could teach it. So what I did was I asked for the people who ran the location, wonderful, lovely, beautiful people who ran the retreat resort, if I could have some large sheets of paper and some pens. And I made signs. I wrote out yoga thoughts, yoga themes, pearls of wisdom, jokes, and I even made stick figures of postures. And then I got my very willing, loving, adorable, supportive husband to basically act out the yoga practice while I taught it on these big cards. And that went on for another 2 days. And it worked. I took a lot of wonderful elixirs that the Mexican chefs were making me, and I got myself back to health and I got my voice back, and we all had a beautiful, wonderful time. And the big lesson there was things don't always go how we imagine them because honestly, I didn't imagine it like that. Even though I might have been worrying about what could happen, I did not imagine that. But it was great. And I think we all learned something that we wouldn't have learned otherwise about how flexible we can be and how attitude matters. And, have a sense of humor. It's just life. But really, if we can gather ourselves in the moment of worry, make an informed decision about what's in our control and what isn't, not waste too many precious moments in the worst case scenario syndrome, wearing down our minds and bodies with that constant drip of cortisol, the stress hormone, and losing sleep. If we can just find some tools, find some presence, put a little buffer between it all, between the thought and observing the thought, choosing the thoughts a little more carefully, we're going to do a lot better. We're going to sleep better. We're going to look and feel better. So here's one little trick that I do, and this might not be for you, but it really does help me. If I'm worried about someone or something like my daughter, or maybe I forgot to lock the car, I think, or I'm worried about a big event and dangerous possibilities, I will see a pure white light in a circle around them. And I'll take a few deep breaths and I'll say, I trust that you are in the hands of the supreme power of light and love, and that you are protected. And so it is. So I hand that to you. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll find it useful. But let's practice it right now. So again, if you are not in the situation where you can get comfortable and close your eyes, just get comfortable inside. And if you can close your eyes, close them now, like you're pulling down the blinds a little bit, just dimming the light. So once that light around us dims a little bit, the light within us is illuminated. It becomes brighter. The light in your heart, the light in your mind, the light in your cells. And we're going to use that light, expand it beyond your body so that you see yourself surrounded in a circle of white light. And inside of this circle, you are safe, grounded, calm. You know that you are loved. You know that the universe is thrilled to have you here, that you matter, and that you're cared for. And inside this circle of white light, let's invite in anybody right now that you'd like to. Friends, family, pets. They may be living. They may be on to the next thing. They may be in the beyond. But right now, invite them in. Let your circle of light expand to hold whoever, whatever you'd like. Maybe it's your whole country. Maybe it's the whole world. And we're just being together in this sacred, safe circle of light. And there is nowhere in the world better for us to be than here right now. Okay, let's breathe it in. Breathe in that light. Exhale. Relax in that light. If your eyes are closed, we'll open our eyes. So I want to say again, as I always do, how grateful I am, how happy I am that you join me in our sacred circle of lights and maintenance. And if you're new to this, I truly hope that you got something from it, that you enjoyed it. And if you've been listening in or watching on YouTube regularly, I'm so, so very glad, so very grateful, because I know I know that what we're doing here makes a difference. So please, if you feel this is valuable, share it, share it, share it, and comment, or maybe write a review. It really helps to spread the word so more people who need this can find it. And until I see you next time, the light within me bows to, honors, and appreciates the light within you. One more Sanskrit word for the day. This one you probably know. Namaste.